everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and today's video is going to be book recommendations and what's next. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Lee and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. And welcome back to my backyard. With us all in quarantine right now, finding a place that is quiet to film has proven to be quite a challenge. So I'm filming from my backyard today, and I wanted to share with you what I read throughout the month of April, as well as what we read with our kids. Now this video is part of a collaboration that is being hosted by myself, as well as my friend Ingrid over at the Ingrid Chronicles. I'm going to link her channel down below as well as the playlist. She always has great ideas, and a lot of times when I'm watching her videos, I'm sitting down with a pen and pencil as well. So first I'm going to talk about what I read throughout the month of April. Now, I've pulled 2 books from my spring reading list. I will link that video down below as well. I pulled one from the parenting category. This is My Heart's at Home by Jill Savage. This is a book that I read years and years ago. I added it to my spring reading list to see if it was one that I wanted to continue to hang on to, or if it was one that I was ready to pass along. This story is basically about creating the foundation of home. And even though it's geared towards stay-at-home moms, I feel like it would be good for parents in general. Probably mostly toward the motherhood part of things, but even if you're not a stay-at-home mom, I still think this has some really good information. Talks a lot about being a soft place, a good place for your kids to learn, and sort of being their safety net, how you create that foundation of trust so that they can come to you, how you create that family culture so that you're growing and working together. I felt like this was a really good book. However, I will say, upon reading it, I thought this is a lot of the stuff that we kind of do, and I think that probably in the first reading I took a lot of her ideas and her principles and had already integrated them into our family. So I think this is a really good one if you haven't read it before, but since I have, and we have implemented so many of those things already, I'm going to be passing this one along. The next book I read was called Every Body Matters by Gary Thomas, and if you have read any of Gary Thomas's work before, you will not be surprised by his style of writing. He is very much so about finding the spiritual principles in real life situations. So a lot of this book is about how the way we eat, the way we move, the way we treat ourselves physically and mentally applies to how healthy we are spiritually, and that by taking care of our bodies physically, we can grow spiritually. It's sort of a act as unto God. Now, conversely, if you're not taking care of yourself, it can have spiritual ramifications. This is one that I have read over and over and over again and still glean a ton of wisdom from. So this one will be staying on my shelf. This is also one of those books that if I have Christian clients who are getting started on their health and fitness journey, I always recommend this one. The next book that I read personally was called Love Undone. This is by Cindy Woodsmall, and if you have seen any of my prior videos, you know I'm a huge Woodsmall fan, and I picked this one up. This is the story of Jolene, who is about 19 when her parents are killed in an accident, and she goes on to raise all her siblings. Now at the time she was engaged to be married, and that engagement is called off when she makes the decision that she's going to raise all these kids. So we meet her again as she's in sort of her mid to late 30s, and she meets a man named Andy. All of her quote-unquote children have pretty much grown up. She has 2 living at home. And he is what's called a grass widower, I think is what they call him. So his wife has run off, although he's still technically married. And he thinks that she knows this about him. There's some miscommunication there. And of course they start to fall in love, which is not sort of allowed since he's still married. This was one of those storylines that I have not seen often in Amish fiction. Sort of brought about some complications, some things that we wouldn't think of in modern day society. So it kept me reading, and of course I will always recommend a Woodsmall book. She has such a gift for keeping her reader engaged and really crafting a great story. The last book that I read personally this month was called Writing Wild. Now this is several short autobiographical sketches of women naturalists who use nature in either their fiction or in their poetry they were always pulling in the natural world and explaining the natural world and putting it forth to a larger, broader audience. They've sort of awakened this movement, much like their male counterparts, where they talk about how important nature is in real life and how we are all so interconnected with our environment. What's interesting about this book is that it is all focused on female writers, women that you don't typically hear much about. And some of them have some very famous family that we do know about. And so it's drawing these women's stories to light. Now, this book was completely out of my box. It was a book that I was asked to review, and I will link my full written review down below. And I was intrigued by it because I love the natural world. I love being outside and that whole thing. But it was sort of hard to read because it was such a higher intellectual writing style. Although I think that it was definitely the right kind of book to sort of burst me out of my typical run-of-the-mill genre. I think if you're interested in women's studies, if you're interested in environmental studies, if you're interested in getting sort of a broader picture of the naturalist world, this is one of those books I would recommend. Now, what we read with the kids this month, it was a slow month. As far as being in quarantine, I was actually really surprised how little we read. And I think that's because we've done a few things around the house. We've had some later evenings doing bike rides and such. And so we have started Catted Woodlawn, but we have not finished that. That's our read aloud in the evenings. So I will give a better review of that in May. Our audiobook this month was Eric Liddell. This is part of the Christian Heroes Then and Now series. We are starting a short, quick unit throughout Asia, sort of a geography, cultural, geographical unit for our history. And so I grabbed this one because he was a missionary to China. The kids just finished it today and they loved it. I love this series. I love being able to take real life sort of superheroes and put them before my kids. And so this is one in a series that we actually really loved. Now I have a question for you. Part of the consequence of everything that is happening, we cannot get into our library, and that's where we pick up a lot of our audiobooks. So this was the last audiobook that we actually had on hand, and I'm going to need to be returning it soon. I can't get in to get any others. Now I think there is a free trial for Audible that is being offered to anyone who is sort of homeschooling during this time period. So if there are any good audiobooks on there that you can think of, my kids are 12 and 8. Give me a heads up because we are definitely, I have nothing for the rest of this week. For next week, anything, I need some good audiobooks for them. So that was our book recommendations for the month of April. Giving you a little teaser into what's coming in for May. I have already started Made to Crave by Lisa Turkhurst. This was again on my spring reading list, sort of in the healthy living genre. I have started it several times before and not finished it, but I'm determined to finish it this time to see if there's anything that I can glean from it or if it would be a good recommendation. So I'm sort of curious myself. It's been out for a really long time, I just haven't finished it. I'm also reviewing the new Julia Rotham Nature notebook that I think is coming out today or tomorrow. I'm in the middle of reviewing that one, so I'll have more information about that in May. Other than that, if you have any good recommendations for us, I would love to see them. I'm also going to link my Goodreads account down below for you as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.